This goddamn tweet and the lying. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know, the change of stories, the lack of preparation, the lying, the holy. But he's appealing to the base. What they're doing with the kids at the border. I mean.
So what you just heard there was Maryanne Trump Barry, Donald Trump's own sister, describing him as a liar, saying that he's just appealing to the base. Guys, this is actually a pretty big story. Some people are saying, oh, this is just drama. This isn't a big deal. No need to pay attention to it. And I do agree in many respects. And I'm going to get into the details of whether or not I think that this is going to have any kind of effect in just a second here, just a few minutes. But I do think that this is actually a big story. It is actually a bigger story. We have gotten so used to, so normalized to hearing every single week we hear another close confidant or former close confidant of Donald Trump coming out describing him as a liar, coming out describing him as a con man, whether it's contractors who used to work for Donald Trump, who Donald Trump tricked, or whether or not now it's close family members. We keep hearing this story come out again and again and again, testifying to Donald Trump's character. Now, look, I'm someone who believes that policy is always the most important path. And sometimes, you know, you can get caught up in what someone's character is, and et cetera, and then lose sight of the policies and the things that we're trying to do. But in this case, it is absolutely relevant, because if someone's character gets in the way of them actually being honest and actively telling the truth to voters, then how are voters ever going to vote for the policies that they want in the first instance, if you can't trust the politician to do the thing that they say? Now, in the case of Donald Trump, the things that he already says are absolutely terrible, absolutely horrible. You know, talking there about what Donald Trump says about the children at the border, the things that he is doing, putting children in cages at the borders. This stuff is absolutely disgusting. But I want to go through this a little bit more, because there's actually even more audio clips coming out from this particular correspondence, from this particular conversation, corroborating the possibility that Donald Trump paid someone else to take the SATs for him, take the entrance exam so that he could get into the University of Pennsylvania. So I want to play that clip for you all, then we'll talk about it.
I drove him around New York City to try to get him into college. He ended up in Fordham. I got him in somehow. Before I had any real Catholic roots. Right. But I didn't get him in, but I know he didn't get into college. And he went to Fordham for 1 year, and then he got into University of Pennsylvania. I guess he had somebody take the exams. No way. And
he had somebody take his entrance exams?
SATs or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. You're kidding.
That's what I believe. I even remember the name.
Oh, man.
But then he, you know.
I mean, not that I'm shocked.
But now when you do, when he does stories, he never mentions Fordham.
Of course not.
Oh, my God.
No, he went to the Wharton School, which also isn't true. He didn't go. He went to the University of Pennsylvania.
Went to University of Pennsylvania.
And took a couple of classes, I guess, at Wharton.
Oh, that's insane. But that's him.
So,
and he, you know, I did his homework for him. I mean,
So, I mean, you just heard there pretty clearly, Donald Trump's own sister believes that Donald Trump paid someone paid someone or in some way had someone else take the SATs for him because he wasn't even really able to get into school. In fact, possibly even suggesting, if you listen to that clip closely, possibly even suggesting that he wasn't even fit to get into Fordham in the first case. But then he somehow got his way, failed his way in many respects, possibly into the University of Pennsylvania. So these are really explosive allegations, because, you know, about a month ago, maybe it was a few weeks ago, I can't remember when. I mean, the timelines get all screwed up nowadays with all the crazy stuff coming out. But when those allegations came out that Donald Trump paid someone in order to get into the University of Pennsylvania, I think there was two general reactions. On one hand, I think a lot of people genuinely just weren't surprised. They were kind of like, yeah, that's about what I expected. That's about what I would have expected from someone like Donald Trump. But then on the other hand, there was a lot of outrage. There really was a lot of outrage, because a lot of people were pointing out how this is just like how a lot of rich people turn around and they criticize the poor, they criticize you and say, well, you didn't get ahead. Well, you failed in school. Well, you didn't do well. But then they'll turn around and take all the advantages, all the privileges, whether it's high-level tutors, et cetera, et cetera. But then when even that doesn't work, they'll turn around and possibly even pay other people or use the college scandal that we've heard so much about over the past year and a half, and use different kinds of leveraging techniques in order to get into these elite universities so that then they can further their privilege. And so a lot of people were upset about it, even if a lot of people weren't necessarily surprised. A lot of people probably did think that Donald Trump somehow cheated his way, or Donald Trump somehow bribed his way, or something of the sort in order to get into the University of Pennsylvania. But it still did make a lot of people upset because it was just so blatant, so obvious, so clearly demonstrated for a lot of people just how the ruling class ends up lying and ends up creating an ideology of poverty, ends up creating this ideology, well, if you didn't get ahead, it's because you failed. But then they'll turn around, and if they fail, they'll use all their privileges in order to keep their step up above everyone else. So I want to go through this a little bit more, though, because there is some interesting details, for instance, about Donald Trump specifically and the Fordham SAT stuff. So it is a little bit more ambiguous than some people are suggesting, because so apparently the person's name, because you'll remember there in that audio clip you just listened to, they were even suggesting that she was even suggesting here that they remembered the name. Well, the name was Joe Shapiro. And apparently Joe Shapiro is someone who Donald Trump knew back when he was at the University of Pennsylvania. Now, he is deceased at this point, and his widow is claiming that, this was never true, that he never took a test for anyone else. Now, of course, that's unclear. We don't know. And of course, then Mary Trump came out and said that it's actually a different Joe Shapiro. So there actually is a little bit of dispute on how exactly the college test stuff worked out, or what really went down. Unsurprisingly, I mean, it's something that happened decades and decades and decades ago, right? So, there's obviously going to be some kind of fuzziness around it. But it is, that is obviously very, very important to mention. Now, the other thing that I want to show you guys a clip of from this particular interaction is Maryanne Trump, Donald Trump's sister again, claiming that Donald Trump tried to take credit for her success. So if you don't know, Maryanne Trump Maryanne Trump Barry was actually a federal judge, a high-ranking federal judge for quite a long time. And so Donald Trump apparently tried to take credit for this. I'll just show you guys the clip.
He once tried to take credit for me. Well, where would you be without me? I said, you say that one more time, I will level you. Jesus. Because in 1981, he had Roy Cohn call Reagan, who had to be a woman appointed to in New Jersey to a federal court, because Reagan's running for re-election, and he was desperate for the female vote. Did you make Chief Justice Rehnquist appoint me the head criminal judge? No, he didn't. You ever mention that one more time, I will wipe you out, and I would.
And Donald's out for Donald, period. When he started to say something to me, boy, look at what I've done for you. And I said, you have done nothing. Deliberately. I have never asked him for a favor since 1981, when I was being highly considered to go in the federal court on my own merits. I never used the name Trump.
Now, in many respects, that clip was actually quite sad. That clip was very, very sad, because it showed me someone who, even Donald Trump's sister, even she cannot trust her own brother. She knows that if she were to give Donald Trump an opportunity to brag, or try to, give Donald Trump a point where Donald Trump can say, I helped you out here, that he would turn around and use it against her in some way, where even though Donald Trump didn't help her out, even then, he tried to take credit for her success in some way. And so it actually is, I think, quite sad. It shows a deeply torn family relationship. It shows a relationship where even Donald Trump's sister, again, knows that she cannot trust Donald Trump in any way, and that Donald Trump is really all about himself. She describes saying that it's all about the Donald. It's all about himself. It's all about him. And I think that that's actually sad. A lot of people aren't taking enough time to pause and think about just how sad that situation is, and just how many people Donald Trump clearly has hurt throughout the course of not only his career in politics, not only his career in business, but also just his life in general. And I think that it's really sad, and I think that it is something that we should take a moment to stop and think about. Now, I want to talk, though, and think about whether or not this is actually going to hurt Donald Trump. I'd like to think that it would, right? But we have seen so many stories, so many instances, so many things come out over and over and over again where Donald Trump does something, Donald Trump says something, and it doesn't seem to work. I mean, the whole narrative around the last time around in 2016 was this idea that Donald Trump is this massive monster where, you shoot him and then he just grows bigger, right? That was the narrative that started to come out of the mainstream media, that, you shoot him with your guns, you shoot him with your laser blasters, and he just gets bigger and bigger and bigger because he sucks up the news cycle. He takes up all the air and then is able to grow his lead even when you attack him, Now, we've seen from the COVID stuff that Donald Trump is vulnerable. Donald Trump is vulnerable, and you can take him down. Clearly, right now, he's getting obliterated in the polls. Whether or not that holds, that's another question, right? That's another question. But I'd like to think, anyway, going back to this here, I'd like to think that this would hurt him. But my guess is that it won't. My guess is that it probably won't. And I'm going to get to this in just a second here, get to sort of why I think that in just a second here. Donald Trump already out here dismissing the secret audio, calling him cruel, saying, who cares? Who cares? Just dismissing it outright. Like, whatever, who cares? And he went on to sort of distract the conversation around to talk about how his brother recently passed away and how he's mourning his brother, et cetera, et cetera. Honestly, yeah, I think that this is about as far as this story is going to go. I'd like to think that people would look at this and say, hold on, why is it the case that his own sister thinks these things about him? What does that say about his own character? But unfortunately, so many people are just so locked in to their views, so locked in, so sucked into Donald Trump as being some kind of hero when clearly he's not, that I don't think that this is going to have any kind of real effect on the electorate. It might help a little bit in terms of Joe Biden's vote for certain maybe suburban voters who are already moving over, especially upper middle class educated suburban voters moving over to the Democratic Party right now. We saw the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, really targeting those voters. Now, I don't think that that's a good strategy, and I'll have some videos out in a couple days talking about that and sort of breaking down the general strategy of the DNC. So if you want to watch that, we'll look out for those videos. But in general, I don't think that that's a particularly good strategy because at this point, anyone who already was going to be anti-Trump is probably already anti-Trump. The DNC strategy that they're really angling at right now is trying to target these plugged-in moderates, bringing in people like John Kasich, bringing in people like John McCain's family, bringing in people like Colin Powell, although Colin Powell was a little bit different because he did support Obama last time around, but still, you get my point here, that really the DNC wasn't necessarily even targeting moderate voters, but targeting plugged-in moderate voters, and I think that there's an important distinction to be made there. So for instance, most voters who describe themselves as moderate or centrist aren't necessarily like universally centrist in terms of all their policies are in the middle. It's more so the case that a lot of these moderate voters or swing voters are actually just voters who have maybe just positions all over the place, right? They might support single payer healthcare, but then, have, certain views that might be considered anti-trans by a lot of Democrats, right? And so there's a lot of sort of diversity that a lot of individuals will have, and those are really the swing voters. The swing voters are not centrist voters in the sense that, they believe in universal free trade, they believe in tax cuts for the rich, they believe in all these other Republican talking points or moderate talking points, or they always believe in tough on crime policies. Oftentimes, swing voters, where they do exist, swing voters are voters who have positions all over the political spectrum. And so by targeting, sort of plugged in moderates who are high information and literally are the very, very small minority of people out there who actually are like moderate consistently on all the issues, that's a very, very small demographic to be targeting. And honestly, those voters are probably already back into the Democratic Party because those are the voters that won Democrats the House in 2018 in the midterms there. So my guess is that the DNC strategy probably isn't the best strategy in order to be targeting the kind of swing voters that the Democrats are going to need if they want to have a massive, massive sweep, winning the House and the Senate. So my general view on the strategy going on right now is that that's not the right approach to things. So my guess is that this clip of Maryanne Trump, Donald Trump's sister, talking about how Donald Trump is a liar, criticizing Donald Trump, clearly showing that even his own sister doesn't really trust him. My guess is that this probably won't do a whole lot. Because think about it, guys, the only people who this kind of story could really swing are voters who are A, really plugged into politics, really listening to the news stories going on in the day, and also B, are moderate enough where they're not terrified of Joe Biden, right? And so my guess is those voters have already swung. Those voters were already with the Democratic Party in 2018. They didn't like Donald Trump. In fact, might not have even voted for Donald Trump in 2016. At best, you're getting the people who decided to sit out the election in 2016 right now. That's really the best the Democrats can do by targeting in some of these high information plugged in voters. And I think, again, this story really just goes to target plugged in voters. It's not the kind of story that's explosive in the way that I think would, be able to swing voters who, again, are the true swing voters where they have policies all over the spectrum. But that's just my opinion. If you disagree, you can let me know down in the comment section below. If you did like this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks.